is an incredibly potent and quite infallible truth serum. I call it the undisputed truth. Twice as strong as sodium pentothal with no druggy after effects, except for a slight wave of euphoria. You feel it?
Euphoria?
Yeah.
No.
Too bad.
When people talk about Quentin Tarantino, the first things that usually come to mind are his signature style. Those long, witty dialogues, colorful characters, and that wild mashup of different genres. But there's one movie so big in scale that Tarantino himself couldn't fit it all into one film. He actually had to split the story into two parts. Of course, I'm talking about Kill Bill. And honestly, that decision worked perfectly. Instead of a cut-down version, we got a full-on epic, with all the details, the atmosphere, and the rhythm he wanted. Both parts ended up becoming cult classics, and are still considered some of the brightest highlights in his career. But here's the interesting part. Despite all the love from fans, even many critics still can't clearly explain the main idea behind the story. A lot of people will tell you Kill Bill is just about style, Eastern aesthetics, flashy visuals, and cool fight scenes. And nothing deeper. But I don't agree. I think Kill Bill is actually one of Tarantino's most philosophical films. And in this video, I'll try to show you what's really hidden underneath its stylish surface, and why this story goes way deeper than it first seems. At first glance, Kill Bill might seem full of random scenes or long dialogues that don't really matter, stuff you could cut out without changing the story, but that's just an illusion. With Tarantino, nothing is random. Every gesture, every line of dialogue, even every pause, serves a purpose and ties back to the bigger idea holding the whole movie together. If you ask someone, what's this film really about? The answer you'll probably hear is simple. Kill Bill is a revenge story. And honestly, it's hard to argue with that. It's about a woman who was betrayed, left for dead, but somehow survived. She sets out on a mission to wipe out everyone who destroyed her life, with the ultimate goal of facing Bill himself. And that could have been the end of it. A brutal but straightforward story of vengeance. But here's the twist, the ending. That's where Tarantino flips everything around and makes us realize this isn't just a stylish action story about payback. There's something much deeper going on. So from this point on in the video, I'll be talking about Kill Bill and Kill Bill Volver 2 as one complete story, a single film split into two parts. All throughout the movie, Tarantino makes it look like we're heading toward the big finale, the ultimate showdown between Beatrix and Bill, good versus evil. We're ready for it. The bloody fight, the nail-biting tension, and that cathartic moment when revenge is served and justice finally wins. But that's not what happens. Instead of an epic battle, we get nearly half an hour of dialogue. They sit, they talk about superheroes, human nature, and what they truly meant to each other.
As you know, I'm quite keen on comic books.
And when the fight finally comes, it lasts less than a minute, and they don't even leave their chairs. And here's the real twist. Beatrix doesn't feel joy in victory. She doesn't look like someone who finally got what she was fighting for all this time.
Because I'm a bad person.
That's the gut punch. At that moment, it clicks. Tarantino's been playing with us all along. Kill Bill isn't just a revenge flick, it's something much deeper. To really get why the ending of Kill Bill changes the way we see the whole story, we need to stop for a second and look at two big ideas. And the first one is postmodernism. Now, if you've ever heard people talk about Tarantino, chances are you've heard this word thrown around. He's a postmodern filmmaker. But let's be honest, if you didn't study philosophy or art history, the word postmodernism sounds more like some complicated, blurry concept than anything real. So let's keep it simple. I'll give you three quick examples. Andy Warhol's famous Campbell's soup cans, the M2 building in Tokyo, designed by Kengo Kuma, and the Fatboy Slim track, Praise You. At first glance, these things seem completely unrelated, but actually they all connect to postmodernism. So, what is postmodernism really? In simple words, it's an approach to art that hates strict rules. It breaks the wall between high and popular culture, plays with irony, references, and mixes things that Naperweev's glad don't even go together. Postmodernism takes something old, reshapes it, and suddenly it feels fresh and new. Let me give you a few quick examples. Andy Warhol and his famous Campbell's soup cans. Just a regular grocery store item, right? But Warhol turned it into art, blurring the line between an elite gallery and everyday culture. The M2 building in Tokyo, designed by Kengo Kuma. The facade looks like a giant puzzle, with pieces of ancient Greek architecture, traditional Japanese aesthetics, and futuristic design all fused together. Past and future literally melt into one. And finally, Fatboy Slim's track Praise You. Like much of his music, it's built from borrowed fragments, samples from older songs rearranged into something completely new. The core comes from Camille Yarborough's Take Yo Praise, 1975.
Through the hard times and the good.
But in this new form, it became a hit that defined an era, and that's postmodernism in action. Taking familiar pieces and remixing them into something unique, playful, and full of new meaning. Tarantino in cinema is doing the exact same thing Warhol did with painting, Kuma did with architecture, or Fatboy Slim did with music. He grabs styles and images from everywhere: samurai flicks, spaghetti westerns, Asian action movies, even anime, and blends them into one whole. But here's the thing, it's not just a mashup for fan service. With Tarantino, it becomes a real game, with the audience and with pop culture itself. Familiar things suddenly feel fresh and different. And in Kill Bill, this technique hits its absolute peak. The movie turns into a full-on postmodern experiment, where genres clash, overlap, and transform into something completely unique. The best part? It works even if you don't know the sources. You don't need to be an expert in Japanese cinema or have studied the history of Westerns to enjoy Kill Bill. Just like with Kuma's architecture, you don't have to name the styles to be impressed by the building. Or like Fatboy Slim, you don't need to know every original track he sampled to vibe with the music. That's why Tarantino's film works on all levels. For movie geeks, it's a goldmine of references, and for casual viewers, it's just a visually stunning, adrenaline-filled ride that hooks you from the very first minute. Every element Tarantino throws into Kill Bill isn't just there to look cool. Behind each detail, whether it's a visual, a sound, or a gesture, there's a whole world of stories, cultural codes, and emotions. That's why the film feels so rich. It hits you on different levels at once. You can enjoy the action, the music, or the visuals without knowing a single reference. But if you do dig deeper, you'll find layer after layer of meaning hidden underneath. That's what makes Kill Bill such a rare mix. On the surface, it's easy to watch, but underneath it's insanely multi-layered. And here's where we get to the next key idea: deconstruction. If postmodernism is all about taking old forms and remixing them into something new, then deconstruction is one of the main tools to do that. The term was made famous by French philosopher Jacques Derrida, though it goes back to Martin Heidegger and his idea of destruction. In simple terms, it's a way of breaking down familiar structures, exposing the contradictions inside them, and then rebuilding them in a completely different light. Heidegger once said, if you really want to understand something, you need to step back from the usual way of interpreting it. Take it apart, like an old machine, and see the hidden gears that actually make it work. Later, Jacques Derrida took this idea and turned it into a method: deconstruction. So what is it? In simple terms, deconstruction breaks apart the black and white schemes we take for granted: good versus evil, truth versus lies, center versus margin. On the surface, they seem like opposites, but if you look closely, they never exist in a pure form. Good is always tied to evil. Truth can't exist without lies. Anything considered main always has a secondary shadow. Now you might ask, okay, but what does this have to do with Kill Bill? Right now, it feels like we're still circling around the answer. But trust me, we're almost there. Here's the key. If Tarantino's postmodernism is all about remixing genres, samurai films, spaghetti westerns, kung fu flicks, then deconstruction is the tool he uses to dig deeper. With it, he's not just throwing in references or paying homage, he's breaking down genres and ideas to expose their hidden contradictions. And that leads us to the big question. What exactly is Tarantino deconstructing in Kill Bill? The movie opens with that famous line, "Revenge is a dish best served cold." And everything Beatrix Kiddo does seems to follow this motto. She's on her mission to punish Bill and everyone who betrayed her, left her for dead, and destroyed her life. But Tarantino doesn't play it straight. He hides the full picture from us. The real details of what happened, we only get them much later, closer to the finale. And by the logic of the genre, this is where the big showdown should happen. Hero versus villain, good versus evil. A brutal final duel where justice finally wins. Except that's not what we get. Instead of a bloody fight, Tarantino gives us a conversation, practically a family argument.
You know, sweetie, Mommy's kind of mad at Daddy.
Why, Daddy? Were you being a bad daddy?
Bill injects Beatrix with truth serum, and suddenly the climax turns into a raw, honest dialogue.
Gotcha! What the fuck? Is an incredibly potent and quite infallible truth serum.
And here's the trick. This isn't just a plot twist. This is Tarantino breaking the fourth wall in his own way. It's like he's hitting pause and asking us, the audience.
All those people you killed to get to me felt damn good, didn't they?
You just watched her kill dozens of people, and you weren't horrified, but you were entertained. You probably even admired her strength and cold determination.
Yes.
And then comes the real punch. He asks us to think, are we sure this is really a story about justice and righteousness? Or maybe the line between good and evil here is way thinner than we want to admit. And this is the moment where the movie flips everything upside down. Tarantino tears apart the classic setup of hero versus villain. Beatrix and Bill aren't just enemies, they're something more. They're connected, like yin and yang, opposites that only make sense when they exist together.
Why did you run away from me with my baby?
What Tarantino really does here is break down the whole concept of revenge. This isn't your standard story where the protagonist fights the antagonist, good defeats evil, and justice wins. The lines are blurred. Bill, in his own way, is just as close to Beatrix as anyone else.
I mourned you for 3 months.
He feels betrayed too. He wants revenge just as much as she does.
And what do I find? Not only are you not dead, you're getting married.
So Tarantino isn't just playing with the genre, he's deconstructing the very ideas of good, evil, and even justice.
And there are consequences to breaking the heart of a murdering bastard. You experience some of them.
He's pushing us to question whether those things exist in such a clear, black and white way at all. And here's where it gets even deeper. Jacques Derrida, the philosopher who created the idea of deconstruction, argued that at its core, deconstruction is always about justice. He even believed that justice is the one thing that can't be fully broken down, because it's bigger than any rule or law. It's no coincidence that Tarantino circles back to this same idea later in The Hateful Eight, where Oswaldo Mowbray goes on that famous rant about the difference between justice and frontier justice.
If all those things end up taking place, that's called justice.
It's Tarantino continuing the same philosophical thread, just in another story. Like I said earlier, Tarantino's idea of deconstruction isn't just in the finale, it runs through the side characters too. One of the best examples is Vernita Green, Bill's former ally. When Beatrix shows up at her house, the movie immediately drops little clues. A sandbox, kids' toys. It's clear Vernita has a daughter now. She's left her past behind and is trying to live as a mom.
All I can tell you is that I'm a different person now. I fucked you over bad. I wish to God I hadn't, but I did. Look, if I could go back in a machine, I would, but I can't.
And here comes the paradox. Beatrix knows exactly what she's about to do. Her actions will take a mother away from that little girl, but she doesn't stop. The crazy part? Later in the story, we find out that Beatrix herself once made the same choice.
I'm pregnant.
What is this?
I'm just scared shitless for my baby.
When she learned she was pregnant, she walked away from the assassin life for the sake of her child.
Please, just look at the strip. Please.
That was enough for her to justify starting over. But when Vernita makes the same plea, "I have a daughter too. I've started over too,"
I beseech you for both on behalf of my daughter.
Beatrix doesn't accept it. She goes through with it, and worse, it all happens right in front of the child. At that moment, the roles flip. To Vernita's daughter, Beatrix isn't the avenger or the hero of the story. She's the villain, the destroyer of her family. Tarantino drives it home by having Beatrix admit it herself. If that little girl comes back one day seeking revenge, she'll have every right to do so. And here, the cycle repeats. The roles of hero and villain keep switching, depending only on whose eyes you're looking through. The conversation between Beatrix and Vernita reveals something even deeper. These two knew each other well in the past.
You still take cream and sugar, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they were even friends.
This is an old friend of Mommy's I ain't seen in a long time.
But that history doesn't stop Beatrix. And here's the parallel. When she talks about Bill, she admits she always knew what kind of man he was. She knew he was capable of cruelty, but she never thought he'd do it to her.
But I never thought you would or could do that to me.
For Bill, closeness should have been the line he wouldn't cross. But with Vernita, that same closeness doesn't matter at all.
I'm a killer. I'm a murdering bastard, you know that?
And that's where Tarantino makes his point crystal clear. Revenge erases every boundary. Good and evil, victim and aggressor. It all blurs into one endless cycle of violence, where roles keep swapping back and forth. This idea gets echoed later in Bad's words. When he talks to Elle Driver, he says something important. A warrior and their enemy are always bound together.
Warriors and their enemies share the same relationship.
He even asks Ellie directly what she feels in that moment.
Which are you filled with? Relief or regret?
And her answer hits harder because Bad knows he's finished. His end is near, and that honesty gives her words a strange weight.
Regret.
Bad flat out admits Beatrix has the right to revenge.
Deserves her revenge. We deserve to die.
He validates her cause, but at the same time he exposes the paradox. By claiming that right, she becomes just like the people she's fighting.
But then again, so does she.
That's another layer of Tarantino's deconstruction. He's throwing the question back at us, the audience. In the end, what really separates the victim from the aggressor? There's one really interesting detail connected to Bud's sword, the one Bill once gave him. When Bill asks about it, Bud says he pawned it off.
I pawned that years ago. In El Paso, I got me $250 for it.
But later, after Bud's death, we clearly see the sword sitting in his trailer.
To my brother Bud, the only man I ever loved.
So what's going on here? Did he lie to his own brother? I think this moment ties directly into the bigger theme of revenge. Tarantino shows us just how far Bud has fallen.
Bud, can't you tell time? Yeah.
Tell him to get his f***ing ass back here!
He lives in a messy trailer, he drinks constantly. And he's stuck in a humiliating job.
I'm a bouncer in a titty bar, Bill.
I don't know what car wash you worked before you came here that let you stroll in 20 minutes late.
There's even that scene where his boss makes him clean toilets, a clear sign that life has completely crushed him.
Before you leave, talk to Rocket. She's got a job for you to do.
Yeah, Bud, honey, the toilet is at it again. There's shitty water all over the floor.
So if Bud really did pawn the sword, who could have bought it? Most likely someone with money, maybe even his boss.
Take a hit. Be somebody, baby. That you don't have a job to do?
But here's the twist. When Bud gets his hands on Beatrix's sword, the situation flips.
Get your bony ass down here first thing in the morning with $1 million in folding cash.
Suddenly, he sees a chance, maybe to make some real money, maybe to reclaim his lost pride, and maybe even to take back the sword that once defined him. In a way, it's his attempt at revenge for all the humiliation he's endured.
F***ing with your cash is the only thing you kids seem to understand, okay? I want you to go home till I call you. Till I call you.
And that's why his last words to Elle Driver feel so heavy. When he asks her what she felt after realizing her enemy was defeated.
So now that you're not gonna have to face your enemy no more on the battlefield, the #1 killer
His retirement.
It's not just the rambling of a dying man. It's the question of someone who briefly thought he could change his fate, but instead realized the truth. Revenge doesn't heal anything. It doesn't fix your life. It just leaves you empty. It's not just the main characters in Kill Bill who are driven by revenge. Even the side characters get pulled into the cycle. Take Hattori Hanzo, for example. He swears never to forge another sword, yet breaks that promise the moment he realizes Beatrix needs one to take down Bill.
It would appear he has broken it.
Them Japs sure know how to hold a grudge, don't they?
Even a man who tried to step away from violence ends up fueling it again. And then there's O-Ren Ishii. Her backstory is a textbook revenge tale. As a child, she loses her parents to brutal violence,
made her first acquaintance with death at the age of 9. It was at that age she witnessed the death of her parents at the hands of Japan's most ruthless Yakuza boss.
And grows up with one goal, to take revenge. But here's the real question. What caused her parents' deaths in the first place? Isn't it possible that their killers were also acting out of revenge? And so the cycle repeats, over and over. That's Tarantino's point. Behind every act of violence, there's always another act that came before it.
When you grow up, if you still feel raw about it, I'll be waiting.
Every Avenger eventually becomes someone else's target. Kill Bill isn't just a revenge story. It's a postmodern exploration of the very nature of violence itself. The film tears down the usual lines between good and evil, hero and villain. It shows that those roles are far more tangled than we like to admit. Revenge becomes a tool not for justice, but for analysis, a way to reveal how fragile justice really is and how pain just keeps looping back endlessly. And that's where Tarantino's genius shines. He takes heavy philosophical ideas like postmodernism and deconstruction and delivers them not through boring lectures, but through vivid characters and unforgettable dialogue. You don't need to know the academic terms. You feel the message, because the story hits on both an emotional and visceral level. The cool thing about Kill Bill is that it works on two completely different levels. If you just want to sit back and enjoy the visuals, you'll get it all. The style, the action, the energy, the sharp dialogue. But if you decide to dig a little deeper, you'll uncover a whole layer of hidden meanings and philosophical ideas that Tarantino cleverly hides inside what seem like simple conversations. That's what makes the movie so special. It's easy to watch, but it's also insanely deep if you look closer. And here's the fun part. It's all up to you. Which level do you want to experience? If you liked this breakdown, now's the time to let me know. A like on this video is your way of saying, yeah, I want more Tarantino breakdowns. The more love this video gets, the higher the chance I'll dive into another one of his masterpieces next.